What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? You already know what time this is. This is your boy, the historian. We're getting ready to get to it. We got a special guest that's coming on tonight or whatnot. Just waiting on him to get to the building. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. But we got you covered.
Okay, y'all, this is it.
Well, what's going on? We got Coach Brant in the building right now. We're just waiting on Mr. Wyche to get into the building tonight. We definitely got a little something for you guys. We're going to talk about last season with Mr. Wyche and also talk about some of the moves that are being made with the Falcons at this point and how the NFL across is looking for the draft. So, Coach Brant, how you doing this evening, man?
Doing just fine. How about yourself?
Hey, man, it's always a good day when you're on the right side of the dirt. So, question for you. When you look at the Falcons at this point and you look at how everything ended up going, and from last season to this point of the season with the drama that we've had, how do you feel everything is going with the Falcons at this point?
Well, I think we made a couple of good moves. We're filling some needs that we have, and I'm anxious to see what's going to happen over the next 4 or 5 days to see that might change the whole trajectory of the offseason with the quarterback situation. So let's see how that plays out. That could be a shot of adrenaline for us if things play out the right way, and we can pick up a couple other players or picks for it.
Well, I mean, when you sit back and look at it, it's just one of those things where we said we wanted to outrun the South, but the thing was we outran them, as you would say, for a third of that race, and then we ended up collapsing at that point. And all you can do is just sit back and say, well, what can you do at this point? What can you do? What can you say? And it's really not all just on Raheem. You got to put that on players that weren't executing. And with all the stuff that's going on right now, you have to question, was it going on behind closed doors?
Yeah, that's a $100,000 question right there. That's some privileged information that you hope everything was good behind closed doors, and you hope the unity's there, because we do have playmakers on the team, like you and I were talking earlier. We got to learn from our mistakes. That's the biggest thing. It's okay to make a mistake. Can't keep making the same mistake. So,
well, when you look at it, we talk about mistakes. We talk about everything that comes a lot with it. You know, the last time Mr. Wyche was here, he spoke on the fact that he said, hey, Falcon fans are the most sensitive fans really in the NFL. And it's the truth. But when you've gone through as many traumatic seasons, and not just traumatic seasons, you look at everything that you've gone through, from draft picks that didn't pan out, bad money management, injuries, and just coming up short consistently. Do you think that this puts the Falcon fans in a situation to where they're, I'm not even going to use that word entitled, I would say that they have a right to be in that situation to where they feel a certain way about what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's the franchise is, you know, it's a lot like people. When people show you who they are, believe them. What's our franchise shown us in the last 7 years?
Well, in the last 7 years, the one thing I can say about the Falcons franchise that they've showed us is the inept ability to win when it counts.
Yeah, well, they can get right there to the finish line and be like, "Oh, you got to be quicker than that." That guy, old man, reeling that dollar bill up on that commercial. That's them. That's us.
So, looking at the acquisitions for the offseason, while we're waiting on Mr. Wyche to get into the building or whatnot, having some issues with some things. Let's talk about it. We just picked up Leonard Floyd from the San Francisco 49ers, former Georgia Bulldog, and a gentleman who's very familiar with the state, but at the same time, he's won a championship. He's been a top player. Pretty much everywhere that he's played, he's been an impact player. What type of impact do you think that Leonard Floyd is going to bring to this team, especially if we actually draft a young pass rusher?
Well, hopefully we can get a little bit of the Dwight Freeney effect that he had on Mr. Beasley the season that he was here. That was the one and done season that he had when he had his leadership there.
Mhm.
Hopefully that can rub off on a couple of the young guys that we have right now and some of the ones that were on the shelf last year too. So
Mm.
I think it's a good signing.
Okay. I definitely can understand when you say that and you look at what's been happening with the Falcons all the way around, and you're in a position to where you have to make some moves at this point, even with your hands tied behind your back with the finances, because we've lost two players, two anchors pretty much. You lose Grady's leadership on the D line, you lose Drew Dahlman, who started to become a top lineman in the league at this point, because he struggled at first at the center spot, because remember, he started off as a guard before they moved him inside the center. And now that he's matriculated, Chicago has two experienced pieces that's going to be able to help out with a young team, because they're bringing in a lot of young players as well, and they still have some there. So right now, while we're waiting on Mr. Wyche, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little something a little different today, because we're still waiting on him to get here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat so you guys can actually come in here and chop it up with us for a little bit while we're waiting on Mr. Wyche to get in the building or whatnot. But I would love to hear what a lot of folks are feeling about the draft. What are they feeling about everything that's coming up? And how is it going to affect these guys in the long run, when we make these moves? So I just dropped the link in the chat. If you want to come in right now, we're just waiting on Mr. Wyche to get into the building or whatnot. And again, I just see so much potential from this team that could have won a broken division and could have built off of that. What do you think is one of the true deciding factors on this team ever getting over the hump?
Not turning the football over. I mean, last year our defense wasn't what it was the year before, but at one point in time we had a 2-game lead and we're 3 games above 500, and we started turning the football over like it was a hot potato, like we didn't want it, and you saw what happened. So
when you look at it in that sense, when you say it was like a hot potato, we also have to equate for the obvious situation at this point. You have a Bijan Robinson, you have a Tyler Algier. Tyler's going to have to get paid eventually. because of the type of runner he is. He's right now, they're already saying that he's not above being traded at this point. And neither is Kyle Pitts, but I believe that they're going to keep Pitts here for a while. But you know what? I look at it as this. Tyler Algier is going to make money wherever he goes, and he's going to put himself in a situation to continue to be a top running back in the NFL at this point. That's how I see it. But
absolutely.
So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we have one of the legendary journalists in the game and currently one of the best on the NFL Network and a Howard University alum. We got to shout out the HBCUs in here, baby. It's HBCUs till I die. So we have Mr. Steve Wyche in the building. Welcome back, Mr. Wyche. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? You are really big on the adjectives and the hyperbole, man. You have really oversold me, but thank you for having me on the show.
Well, hey, Steve, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Coach, how's everything?
Well, when you've done it as long as you have, and you have a gift at being able to break things down for fans, future journalists, other analysts that are trying to get into the game, you make things a lot more understandable, and that goes back to your HBCU, how they groomed you and they taught you at the Howard University.
All right. Preach the truth right there. You're speaking gospel, man, from your lips to God's ears.
So I know you've been busy with the offseason and everything that's been going on. And look, I told you I wasn't going to cry next time you came through here because you said Falcon fans are the most sensitive the last time you came on, and it's true.
Big time, man. Big time. Any gift the Falcons fans get needs to have a tube of diaperine included.
It's the truth, but
it's the truth.
But getting to the meat and potatoes of everything, we were just discussing the Falcons at the beginning of the season. So we talked about it, and you were saying, I need to see what you guys are going to be like if things don't work. We were in a weak division, no secrets in that. The Falcons had a substantial lead where we were outrunning the South. It was pretty much kind of, how can I put it? It was kind of like Ben Johnson and what's my man's name? Carl Lewis. That was what that kind of race was. You start off strong, and then Tampa just came back and left us. How do you feel the Falcons can build on this, and what moves would the Falcons need to make in the offseason to try to bandage some of the damage that's going on at this point?
I don't think it's personnel. It's very easy right now because we're in free agency. You have the draft coming up. So personnel this, personnel that. We saw the defense fall apart, right? So they changed the defensive coordinator. You could just see people figured them out. And one thing you see when it comes to coaching is if teams lose on the back half of the season when they tend to be playing their division opponents for the second time, and there's a bunch of film, then a lot of that is coaching, right? That's not changing up to fit what other teams are trying to do, or they've figured you out and you don't have a counter. So I don't think it's necessarily a ton of personnel. Again, defensively, they broke down. I thought Penix was fantastic, especially then because you got Drake London and Kyle Pitts more involved in the game. Bijan Robinson really took off. I just think they just need to grow from this to understand that there are two halves to a season, and you really have to group up for the back half of the season. The teams that surge in the playoffs are the ones that get rolling late, not the ones that survive. And that's how they have to practice. They've got to train a certain way so guys aren't gassed. And again, they've got to continue to evolve, and that's developing your young players and having your veterans be able to sustain for those 17 games.
Coach?
Oh, I'm with you 100% on that. To your point, we have to learn from our mistakes, is what we were talking about earlier before you came on. And it's okay to make a mistake, but learn from it and use it to grow and move forward with it. So that's what I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, look, and some of the things you've seen them do, right? It was painful to lose Grady Jarrett. Very painful because, that's where the feelings are. You've got emotions here. He's a very good player, but you've got to refresh your roster sometimes. and by Raheem Morris adding Leonard Floyd, right? A player he has coached before, a player who is better at the back end of the season, a player who can close out games with plays. This dude's a consistent 8 or 9 sack guy, right? You're going to get that out of him. But the pressures and the way he opens things up for other people because he's hyper athletic, he looks the part, like 6'6", about 265. Like, that's something where, okay, we understand we didn't have a closer at the end of the season. Well, now let's get a closure. They've got to draft a younger edge rushers too. We've been saying this again since the days of John Abraham, but they've got to figure that part out because you are not going to win the NFL if you cannot heat up a quarterback. Look at the teams in the playoffs; they can heat up a quarterback. Buffalo could not heat up the quarterback, and it cost them. Yep. Right, so that's again where I'm going to say the Falcons need to get better.
And most of us, now see, I'm a Bulldog fan as well. So I know about Leonard Floyd and what he brings to the table. So I wasn't complaining when we got him. There were a lot of people saying he's washed. Here's the thing. Most players at that point that understand the game, they've been matriculated, they've been seasoned, and they've seen a lot. That makes it easier for him to teach, as you said, the younger guys coming in, and a lot of folks, like you said, we complain about everything in this fan base. I hate to say it, and I'm a diehard fan. There's been some complaints that I've had, and I'm not going to lie to you, but at the same time, when it comes to certain players, we haven't also had the funds to be able to bring in certain guys as well. That's something else that has hurt us over time. Like right now this year, even though we had a tampering situation, we lost the draft pick. That also hurt us big time. So how do you think Atlanta can, and I'm going to tie the HBCUs in here early for you. How do you think Atlanta can go about the undrafted free agency market? Because we're limited with the picks that we have right now. And I'll give you my list of players, but I want to hear what you think about the undrafted free agency market and how the Falcons scouting department can make a splash, even if the draft we don't have that many picks.
Well, look, when you build your back end of a roster, any GM will tell you this. You got to have special teamers, right? But guys who can come in and play, there's going to be injuries, right? So you're seeing teams right now. You may be wondering what some of these teams in free agency are doing, like the Raiders and this and that. They're building up the back end of their roster because when the eventual injuries come, they can put in guys who can play, right? Who can come in. There might be a drop off, but people who aren't going to cost you. So one, you got to get smart players, right? You've got to get younger players. When you talk about HBCU players, all things being equal, right? You said you're a Bulldog fan. Let's say there's a Georgia Bulldog who's been there 3 or 4 years, and he pretty much has put up the same numbers his last year as he put up his second year, right? So maybe that guy's hit his ceiling, whereas an HBCU player or an FCS player puts up numbers, but because maybe he was a little undersized or he played at, Southern or Jackson State, he may not have got the attention. Well, that person's ceiling is high because you don't know, that they haven't been in a SEC weight room. They haven't been on the SEC dining table nutrition program. So those are players like you talk to really smart personnel people. All things being equal in those scenarios, those 7th round picks, those undrafted free agents, you may want to go with the smaller school guy who's got maybe the physical specs, who's growing into it. But there's an untapped ceiling for that player. Whereas, again, there might be some guy who just hasn't gotten better, whether he's gone from one place to another place in the transfer portal or stayed there. Last year, I think there were only 11 players from the FCS level or below that got drafted, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy when you talk about back end of roster building.
Coach?
I'm a proponent for small college football. So I love it. I love to see everybody get an opportunity. There's an old saying that coaches have, you have to have a fire in your gut. And when you're motivated and you have a family that you have to provide for, and
right
there, sometimes you get a lot more out of them than some. I'm not discounting anybody saying that somebody's been handed anything, but sometimes when things come easier for somebody, the person that works harder usually has a little bit of an edge to them.
Well, Coach, I want to cut you off on that because that's a great point. And this is we're really going to start coming into the NIL generation of players.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you're an FCS and you kill it your sophomore year, and next thing you know, you're out of Syracuse, you're out of Oklahoma State, right? You're getting paid $250,000, $400,000 a year. So you provided for your family, right? You're doing the things at an earlier age than most people have ever had to do. So they're going to be expecting a certain level of treatment or comfort when they come into the NFL. And again, that's where, like, the small colleges are going to get hurt, because if you're special, you're going to get plucked away.
Mm-hmm.
But still, there are some guys, I saw them at the HBCU Combine. I saw them at the All-State HBCU Legacy Bowl, who've got the physical specs, who can come in and really help a team out. There's a safety at Jackson State named Rob McDaniel. 6'2", 215, ran a 4.5 40, built like a Mack truck, plays safety, free and strong, and corner. Like, is this a player that's probably going to get drafted? Really talented player. Didn't make an all-conference team because he played so many different positions, but all the NFL teams are like, okay. Plus, he went to an FCS program. He's probably got that fire burning inside of him as to where if he can come in here and get on special teams and get into the rotation, we might have something special. So, again, that's part of how talent evaluators are going to continue to be tested, to get away from analytics sometimes and to really
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We get so tied up that we forget what's right in front of us sometimes.
And
stuff that's tried and true and worked for 100 years. So
and here's the thing that we were saying about that, because you've seen the show. Like I said, I'm always going to champion for those guys that are at that FCS level and also at the HBCU level. Like I think one of the top players in the country, and I think he could come in Atlanta and take a job, and it's a gentleman that's at your school by the name, by the name of Mr. Kenny Gallup. He's one of the top safeties in the country. He plays, as we say, because, being a former safety, I look at different things. This guy knows how to play pool. He knows how to take his angles. He's smart, pretty much ball savvy, and he's not afraid to come up and mix it up. And the way that he tackles, he's very physical, but the thing that sets him apart is his IQ to be able to physically survive the season with being such a physical player at that safety spot. And I'm a fan of his game, and I look at Kendall Bowler. Kendall Bowler could be a shutdown corner, and I've been telling people about this guy for the longest. And you covered these guys, and a lot of people are saying, well, they're coming from these schools. I said, I'll put it to you like this. If Kendall Bowler was at a Georgia, a Tennessee, an Ohio State, or any one of those schools, he would be a first-round draft pick easily, or a high second round, because of the intangibles that he brings to the table.
Well, he's got size. I mean, speaking of Kendall Bowler, he's about 6'1", 195 on corner who can run. Right. He's put together. Like, he's somebody you look at and say, okay, he passes the eye test. Kenny Gallup is a box safety. He's a little short. That's what's working against him a little bit. He's probably about 5'10", but he's built like a brick house. We have to see how he runs. He did not run at the HBCU Combine, which is a point of contention because all 32 teams were there to see, and he's one of the guys that came to see. And the fact he didn't run soured a lot of people, but they'll get over it if he runs well. So, there's a couple players, but look at the position we're talking about. We're talking about DB, right? And that's where a lot of players from HBCUs who've made it to the NFL, DB, wide receiver, skill position guys, have been able to transition because their ability to play special teams, because their ability to run, and because a lot of them just got the dog in them that some of the players who've been gifted don't have.
And one of the prospects that I've been championing, I said, look, if you don't go edge rusher here in Atlanta, you need to get Carson Vincent. No, I know they're not going to draft him that high, and I've been talking about him. We're going to get to the regular PWIs, but I'm just speaking on this guy. He's impressed me since the Magic City Classic, and for those who don't know what that is, Alabama State versus Alabama A&M. He's played every position on that O-line, which makes him a Swiss Army knife. And I think when you talk about physicality and we're looking at the contracts, we're going to be coming up on McGarry's contract pretty soon. So you got to look at, hey, are you going to keep him here, or are you going to try to bring a guy in that gives him a little work to make him push him a little harder? That's just me.
You're talking Yves Saint Laurent shopping right here.
Oh yeah.
a guy named Carson Vincent was 6'7" out of Alabama A&M. He's a tackle. His height, because of the height and the athleticism, he's probably going to get drafted. He's the only HBCU player who was invited to the Reese Senior Bowl and to the regular combine. Had a really good Senior Bowl. Now, he's somebody you say, okay, we get him in an NFL strength program. We get him on that nutrition table, and we get him playing against top-flight competition daily. You might have a superstar, right? You might have the next Teron Armstead type of player who came out of Arkansas Pine Bluff, right? He might be that type of player. So he might be more athletic. I mean, physically, he's taller, a little bit bigger. He might be more athletic. That's saying a lot because Armstead's a great athlete. But that's a player right there. If you get him in the mid to late rounds and you have patience in developing him, that's a potentially special player.
How do you? And I'm gonna let Coach get on this one, this last question I got, because I don't want to just stay on the HBCUs because I can do that all day. But when you look at the opportunities, as you were saying, these young men have, and you look at some of the great ones that have come out, do you feel like these guys that are coming out in this class are going to be able to survive and actually make a roster and possibly get playing time, like a Marquise Bell, who came up as an undrafted free agent and who just signed for $12 million for 3 years?
Isaiah Land, the linebacker out of FAMU, who's with the Colts now. He's been in the league now for 3 or 4 years. Kaderil Hodge,
my guy,
had that game-winning miracle touchdown, which he was loving that. That was great.
And he blocked several punts too.
Blocked 2 punts.
Yeah. A lot of these guys are going to make it, right? There's a player, a wide receiver out of North Carolina Central named Joaquin Davis, 6'4", about 195 pounds, went and blew a 4.40 at the combine. That was on a slow track. So this guy, he's really put together too, right? This isn't just some tall guy who can run. He played in a run-first type of offense at Central because they ran the RPO game, because they had some quarterbacks who could run. But he's a physical player. He loves playing special teams. This is a guy who can come in, become a special teams player, and at 6'4", you can build him into that red zone type of target, right? The one thing out of going, this is our 4th year doing the All-State HBCU Legacy Bowl. And it used to be real top-heavy with talent, different position group, strong. This across the board is probably the most talented group. You got a couple running backs, Irv Mulligan, the SWAC player of the year at Jackson State. There's a swing D-tackle DN named Elijah Williams out of Morgan State, who's a monster. If he doesn't get drafted, I'll be stunned. He's a monster. He's the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year. He absolutely wrecked everything about the practice week at the All-State HBCU Legacy Bowl. So there's talent there, right? Now, part of it is opportunity, but the other part is these guys seizing that opportunity, understanding that they're not anything special. Right.
The running back out of Virginia Union is pretty good too.
Jada Byers,
2,000 yards rushing this year. Yeah. His 40 time was slow. Right. That hurt him.
That's all right. Emmett Smith wasn't a blazer either.
Correct. But he's one of those guys, he never gets caught. Yeah. He's got football speed. So he might be a short area guy, but he's also a big time returner. So again, there's a lot of guys here who are starting to understand what they're up against. When it comes to trying to make an NFL roster. Some guys, it's tough because they've never had to do this. And I want to tell these guys, okay, look, if you're an offensive lineman and you're built a certain way, there's no fat guys in the NFL, right? If you want to make it to the NFL, you've got to shape your body a certain way because you're not going to get in built like the way you're looking. So come in as a freshman and reshape your body. And if you don't have the strength program at the school, do twice what they're telling you. Find some way to get your body right, to get your head right, to understand, right? Because it's very, very tough for a lot of these schools. Because if you had good coaches, the coaches are getting plucked like players. He got plucked by Bowling Green. He did a great job. I'm surprised it took this long for him to get hired.
Agreed.
So, a lot of things they can do, but there will be talent available, especially among the UDFAs coming out of HBCUs.
Okay. And speaking of coaches, Coach Bill Hayes, I talked to him the other day. He says, when you get Steve on the show, tell him I said hello.
My guy.
Coach Hayes he was barbecuing when I talked to him last, making some ribs.
Invites you to the barbecue, or he was just telling
you? No, I'm all the way in Philly. So he said, if you was to come down here, I save you a bone. I said, Coach, that's almost a 7-hour drive.
And sometimes
I'm not gonna miss it next time.
Okay.
So getting to the Falcons now, we've talked about, the undrafted portion that they'll probably end up looking at from the FCS level. When we look at the Falcons, Raheem Morris walked into a situation where he pretty much opened up the can of worms of expectations at his first press conference of saying, hey, we're going to outrun the South. And just pretty much he's pretty much selling what he believes in. And that's what you're supposed to do when you step through the door. I get it. But a lot of the fans have been disappointed with the results of what happened. And you explained why we fell apart or whatnot. What type of pressure do you think Raheem is under when it comes to us as fans in this fan base and the type of expectations we're putting on him in this spot?
First off, Raheem can't listen to the fan base because the fan base is never going to be happy unless you live in Kansas or Philadelphia.
That's true.
Seriously, you can't listen to the fan base. But they do have an owner who's not getting any younger who expects results sooner rather than later. And that's why he lets you make a move by guaranteeing Kirk Cousins $100 million and drafting Michael Penix, where they drafted him. So now Michael Penix is the guy. Okay, we swung that pendulum there from Desmond Ridder to Kirk Cousins to now Michael Penix. You better he better deliver.
Can I ask you a question? And I know you can't talk a whole lot about it because of different things, but don't you think we're kind of forced right now because of the way our picks are set up that we almost have to move Cousins to get some kind of trade value for him to get some picks?
Yeah, I mean, when the people were sitting there like, "Oh, they're going to cut Cousins because they have to pay him,"
Oh,
I'm like, no, they don't.
Yeah,
no, they don't. You pay him that. You look at how things are shaping up right now. You have the Giants in Pittsburgh, who need quarterbacks. They're waiting for Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson.
Yep.
And then you've got Cleveland, who needs a quarterback because Deshaun Watson retore his Achilles tendon. He's not going to play. So there's going to be a market out there for Kirk Cousins, right?
Get something from him. Yeah, get some picks. But you know as well as I do that the NFL roster is you always have your first round picks and your anchor positions, but your roster is made from the 3rd to the 6th round and your undrafted free agents. That's where everything comes from.
Look, that's where the best teams win. I mean, that's where a team like the Rams win, right? You get Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round. You get Puka Nacua in the 5th round, right? You develop these guys. All those defensive linemen that are killing it, other than Jared Verse, came in the 2nd round or later. And that's
I was actually talking to Ryan.
Right? That's a Raheem Morris. That's his. So,
do we have to pick up the phone and call Cooper Kupp with Zach Robinson's relationship with him? Would that not be a common presence for?
Why wouldn't you? Why for
Penix? Think what he could teach him.
He could teach everybody.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying have a young, talented quarterback and have that familiarity with the offense already. That's you got to, and you're going to get him on the cheap. You have to have that conversation.
You won't get him on the cheap. I mean, he's going to have a big market. You won't get him on the cheap, but I mean, look, Cooper Kupp is a guy who can run every route.
Yeah,
who's a coach's son. Remember, his grandfather, I think, is in like the Saints Football Hall of Fame. Like his father and grandfather played in the NFL. He's a coach's son.
Yep.
He plays the game like a quarterback, right? So everything he does hard, which is why his body started breaking down. That's the only reason the Rams are parting ways with him. But he's a great blocker in the run game. He just brings a whole completely different element. He's kind of like the modern day Anquan Bolden with what he does. But I want to get back to your other question, Coach, about moving Kirk Cousins. I don't even think they have to trade him before this year's draft. Right. I think they can wait until after the draft and get 26 picks because after draft, you're going to know if Cleveland's going to draft a quarterback at number 2, right? And if they don't, then maybe they get into the Cousins market. I don't think they have time to develop a young quarterback. Yeah, I know they just paid Myles Garrett, but they also put something in there to make him think that they're on a course for winning sooner rather than later. And that's by bringing a betting quarterback in and not Kenny Pickett. So I think he will eventually get moved. I know he's got a no-trade clause, but if he really wants to win, he's going to waive that no-trade clause so he can get out and play because being a backup here, because you waive your no-trade clause, you're telling that sensitive fan base that you don't really want to be about it.
Right.
So when we look at everything that's going on, as you were saying with that, some of the talks that we've heard from local radio, some beat writers or whatnot, Kyle Pitts and Tyler Algier, Now, Raheem Morris came out and said we want to keep him here still to try to get something out of him with Michael Penix Jr. How do you feel that relationship is going to blossom, or does Atlanta try to find someone else and see if they can get some value for him? And also Tyler Algier on the chopping block at this point. That's a guy I don't want to see leave, but I understand business.
They're not a shot. You'd be crazy to cut him. I mean, maybe try to trade him. Look, these are two players whose contracts are coming up. That's the only reason you're having this conversation. And with Kyle Pitts, he's got to play. If he's in a contract, if he's trying to get that big money, he's got to come out and ball. If they get rid of him, then they better get something productive in a way to replace him. If he comes out and balls and, and earns his money, then go ahead and pay him. But if not, you have to figure out what you want your offense to be. And look, Zach Robinson, the scheme they come from, other than what the 49ers do with it, is not necessarily a tight end friendly scheme, right? So you maybe flex Pitts out a little bit more with Penix and use him like the Rams used to Cooper Kupp. Use him how the Bengals, used some of their slot receivers. Mm-hmm. So there's just ways you have to be creative with him, but he's also got to want it full time. We've seen flashes of him. That might not be on coaching. That might be on him. We don't know. So maybe that's why, if they're talking about getting him out of here, that might be more about it. I honestly don't know about that, because he's gifted. We've seen it, the lack of consistency. He might be one of these guys like a big man in basketball. If you don't feed him early, you're going to lose him.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to work with that.
Because we've heard, like I said, how you've worked in the media in Atlanta, so 92.9 The Game and other places that have talked about it, and that was just mentioned or whatnot. But the other question I have for you is, when we look at the defense, like you said, Grady going to Chicago, bless him. Get your money, secure yourself. We appreciate everything you did. It hurt to see you walk, but like you said, you got to get younger. What do you think Brandon Dorlus and Trice can bring to the table with this team that we have? And Arnold Ebiketie starting to figure it out now. And then you also have a Zach Harrison, who I still feel like is untapped potential at this point.
Yeah, look, you've got to figure it out in terms of, these guys are athletic, right? They're younger, they're athletic. If you watch what Raheem does with his defense, you've got to have tackles who can do different things, right? They can play, that one technique in the nose tackle, but can he move out to the 3? Can you line up, head up, and play a 2? You've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to really get gap penetration sometimes, or else hold a 2 gap certain times. They're going to ask a lot out of those tackles, because that's what feed the defensive ends. Aaron Donald, the greatest defensive tackle of the modern era. That's why guys like Dante Fowler and Leonard Floyd, all these guys got paid a lot, is because they fed off of great defensive tackle play. And that's part of what this defense is. Like, they don't necessarily value the inside linebackers like the Niners do, in terms of, you got to have a Fred Warner, or you got to have a Bobby Wagner type in there. But, I think that's something where the Falcons got to improve on at that second level as well. Even though, Caden Ellis is that dude. Like, he's the most underrated in the NFL. Like, he's a real one. Yep. But they've just got to have players who are better tacklers closer to the line of scrimmage at that second level. And that's where your defensive tackle play helps you out.
Yep. And just to chime in on this, so ladies and gentlemen that do watch the show or whatnot, I've been saying this for weeks, that we really need an anchor at that defensive tackle. As my guy John Harris likes to say, give me a guy that's going to put his belly in the wheelbarrow, drop it, and literally and I always make the joke. I said, I want the guy that's got a little bit of that chicken fat on the back of his arm that's stirring the collard greens in the pot at the church dinner. That's what I want. Give me a D tackle that's going to be able to control the interior so my other guys can make plays, because Grady to play out of position how he did and dominate, Grady is a hell of a defensive tackle. Yeah. And we have Rukaroro, who's definitely a good player, just like Grady. And I feel as if you give him a real defensive tackle, a real zero technique, and you put him in a regular spot, he'll wreak havoc pretty much like a John Randall. That is who I compared him to when I looked at his motor, his size, and just his aggressiveness. It reminds me of a modern day John Randall. The difference is he doesn't run his mouth as much, but he can definitely play just like that.
Yeah, again, the defensive tackle is big for this type of scheme that Raheem likes to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just, again, they're going to be asked to do certain things, and you're talking about getting a big nose tackle in there who can wreak havoc. You know, David Onyemata can do a little bit of that as well. So, again, they've got to get more athletic there, but we can sit here and talk about D tackles all we want. You got to be able to affect the passer. You've got to be able to play off the edge. And that's where the Falcons just have not had the consistency. They got better at it. But until you got guys you can come in and bring smoke, especially for multiple positions on the offensive line, you're just not going to win in the NFL.
Perfect scenario on the draft. Everybody's available for Atlanta. Who does Steve Wyche go get?
Everybody's available?
No, I'm saying at 15, if things go out, if you could have anybody for Atlanta right now, who would you take?
I mean, you would love Abdul Carter, but he's not going to be there.
Right.
I don't really know. I know some people are mocking corners. I don't think that's the priority. I think the priority is your best edge guy who fits your scheme. Right. That's where we get confused sometimes in talking about this. We talk about talent and not scheme fit.
Right.
You got to find a guy who can win in your scheme. And that's important. Like when the Rams got Jared Verse, people are like, oh, he's just a bull rusher. That's exactly what worked in their scheme. He's a dominant type of player who's hyper athletic, who got more moves as the season went along. So again, it's got to be someone who traps their scheme. I'm not a draft expert. I couldn't tell you probably the top 5 pass rushers right now. I'll get my head in those books and the film very soon on that. I'm just coming out of free agency.
Right.
But I mean, to me, I honestly, unless like a great center is there or something like that, I'm just kind of tired of talking about it when it comes to the Falcons because
hey, I'm long suffering since 78 with them. I know.
Yeah, it just really over and over and over again when you got to win ball games and you can't affect the passer and guys are sitting back there carving up your defense. We can talk about corners and this and that all day. If you give a guy 3.5, 4 seconds to throw it, you're going to get got.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that because a lot of the fan base, well, Bijan's going to get it done for us. This guy's going to get it done. And this is what I always say. I said, listen, defense wins championships. Offense takes you there. If you can't stop somebody in a shootout and they happen to stop you on a possession, that could change the game. Prime example.
What Philadelphia did in the Super Bowl. That's all that needs to be said.
We can go back to 2017 when Keanu Neal drops that interception in that game. That was really the critical changing point because they got a field goal before the
first half,
and that changed it. And just think about it.
Yep.
Tevin Coleman was eating on that last drive, and then they threw it to Julio, and they stopped us in the corner of the end zone. So, again, if your defense can't create turnovers or garner them, your offense is useless, even if they're putting up points. But a lot of people, as you said before, we cry about everything. But when it comes to the knowledge of that, you got to understand, man, the last really good defense we've had was in 2017 when they were ranked in the top 10. We haven't had that since, and we're trying to recoup that magic. But what do you think now? And I'm not even going to say that part. I'm going to ask you about the matter of fact, the general manager side of things. Now, Terry Fontenot he's been trying to bring in players. He's been trying to bring in different free agents, and he's been actually making the attempt. What do you think how you think Terry, he's doing his research, he's doing his due diligence, but he's been missing on that. What do you think Atlanta has to do when it comes to being able to bring in some of these free agents and some of the splash moves that we've been bringing in? Do you think Terry continues to do the same thing, or does he have to change something up?
There's no splash. I mean, they don't have the money to make the splash, and frankly, who are the dudes left to go get? I mean, that part is over. But you don't win, like other than a Saquon Barkley who came in on a relatively light salary deal, right? He was a splash in name, but not in contract. Tell me the big contract guy. Let's put a team over the top. You've got to build free agency again, the back end of your roster, guys who can play if there's an injury. A couple key components. Like, I love what the Denver Broncos are doing right now, right? You went out and you got a hammer of a linebacker in Dre Greenlaw, right? Going to help help on the backside and the middle intermediate level. Then you get Talanoa Hufanga to put in that secondary where you've got Surtain, where you've got some dudes who are going to make you think twice about catching the ball over the middle. And then you go out and get Evan Ingram, who could be the next Jimmy Graham, right? He's not the same height, same physical specs, but we know what Sean Payton likes to do. And so now you're seeing the evolution of their offense and fitting pieces in that aren't necessarily high salary guys.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's what, like, Caden Ellis was a guy no one knew. I think that is a great player.
Yeah.
Right. That's the example you need.
He's our best pass rusher.
Right. And he's really an off-ball guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you need 3 or 4 guys like that every free agent class to come in and enhance your draft picks, right? And enhance some of the veterans who've been developed by the coaching staff. And that's with some of the coaching turnover and they've had, there's too many wheels turning all the time there. And it's weird because you see some teams like Philadelphia and the Rams who just churn out coaches here and there and there. But the core of what they do is always intact. And the Falcons have not been able to do that with the turnover at the quarterback position, with the turnover at some of the key defensive spots, and linebacker, safety, things like that. You may not think those are core, but those are your quarterbacks. Those are your play callers, your green dots. And with the constant turnover and stuff like that, that's, I think they need to find something and develop a core. You can't sit there and say they have a core other than the offensive line.
So here's the other thing I'm going to ask. Now, you're talking about developing a core. You literally, and this is just something that all us Falcon fans wondering, and you get something like, why not go right up the road, less than an hour away? You got Athens, Georgia up the way. It shouldn't take you this long because there have been great players to come out that could actually fit this. Or when Atlanta brings in Georgia players, they're literally, I'll be honest, we bring in great players minus Abraham and Freeney. It's like a retirement home for Atlanta. We get a lot of guys at the end of their career. And I tell people like this, I said Atlanta's a social security, pretty much a place where we hand out social security checks for these players. Why don't we ever draft out of that backyard or even certain other institutions? We stay on the West Coast. We stay at Ohio State and we'll stay going. I mean, literally, we will go everywhere but in your backyard where you've had Richard Seymour, Hall of Famer, Champ Bailey, Hall of Famer, guys that they could have gotten, but they choose to pass on. Why do you think
or the whole Philadelphia defense?
I'm about to say,
and look, a lot of Falcon fans get mad at me and some guys that are in even in our group where we talk, oh, y'all got to get over that. You got to get over that. No. Let's call a spade a spade. Philadelphia has always understood build the trenches and you go get players that are going to make impacts on your team. And they got guys from Alabama, Georgia. I mean, you really can look around. They got guys from FCS schools, guys that might not be sexy picks to some people, but they come in and they're effective. Now, how we got sexy with those picks with those Georgia boys, I don't care. They got a ring now. So it's just like it's in the water now. What do you think is going to be different?
Look, man, when I was covering the Atlanta Falcons from 2005 to 2008, people would say, why aren't you drafting Georgia guys? They eventually drafted DJ Shockley, but Shock blew out his knee.
Yep.
I mean, I just don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, sometimes you have general managers who are used to scouting a certain type of player from a certain conference, right? Thomas Dimitrov was a West Coast guy. They always had a ton of West Coast players and guys from like Missouri, kind of the Midwest area on their roster. I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily a secret way to do it, but look at, again, I'm going to use the Rams again. They went to the well at Florida State twice in the first and second round last year because Fisk and Verse played well off of each other and they dominated it.
I was screaming 2 years ago to get Byron Young. And
Brant, remember I told you when we had that draft, and you can go back and look at the draft, and one of my guys, K-Dub, wanted Trice. I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you just like this here. I said, and you can go back and look at it. I said, my man, Jared Verse is going to be one of the top pass rushers coming into the league. And he said, well, you got to read the tea leaves where Atlanta is. I'm like, okay, I can read the tea leaves, but I'm looking at the fact that Verse was a dominant player from the time he stepped on the field without much help. And then when he got help and they go 13-0, it's, his status went up here a little bit more, but he was always a dominant player, and it's showing in the NFL now. So, and unfortunately, I can't wait to see what Trice is going to look like this year. He's coming off a knee injury, and I know it's going to take him time. So I don't have expectations for him because he's got to get mentally right with his physical health before he can just be that guy that we want him to be. So I'm not putting any expectations on him.
Look, it all remains to be seen. They got a new DC in there now. Oh, the Brick is back. So
monster.
Yeah, but we have
monster.
We have to see. Brick's a guy who likes his inside linebackers to be a certain way, right? He's a former linebacker. He wants certain things out of a defense. But we saw what he did with the Jets. We saw what he did when he was on DQ staff. Right? They had dudes who could come out and play, and you better be able to bring the hat, because if you're not bringing the smoke, he's got no use for you. So we'll see. But I don't know why the Falcons haven't gotten more Georgia players.
Or my Tennessee Vols.
But that's been since Rankin Smith, though. You go back to the history of that, and my guy K-Dub and I were both talking about it. We're like, man, you go back, and Rankin Smith was Georgia alum. The Falcons colors are UGA. And we're like, well, man, you don't even want to pull from your school. But you know what? As we say, it's hard, being a Falcons fan, because, me being a vet, and shout out to my vets out there. Some of us as Falcon fans, we have PTSD, just like some of my military brothers and sisters, with a lot of the things that's happened with this team.
But we can sit there and talk about schools and where to draft players and this and that.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily see a lot of Miami Hurricanes on the Dolphin staff, our Dolphin squad. You're picking the best players who fit your scheme, who fit your culture, and who fit your locker room. And that's there's certain, when you hear Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh say the standard is the standard, they bring in guys who fit their locker room, right? If you're a good player, they'll help you become a better player because they always have talent there. But you've got to be able to fit a certain way, where some teams who constantly go through the recycling, they draft talent and they build a roster, but they don't necessarily build a team. And I think Atlanta's to the point where they're getting closer to building a team because there's a lot of talent there. But again, what is their core? And is that core sustainable enough with some of the moves they made financially? I mean, this Kirk Cousins contract is handcuffed him. The Matt Ryan dead money handcuffed him. The Julio money handcuffed him. As to where can they finally get a core? The Eagles core, right? The Chiefs core. The Niners core. Like, the Niners held on to their core a little too long, and they're paying the piper right now a little bit. So, again, you got a quarterback on a rookie contract. Do not waste that window, because you see what a team like the Washington Commanders is doing. Oh, we're going to go out and get Laramie Tunsil. He's available. We're going to go get Deebo Samuel. He's available. We were in the NFC Championship last year. We might not get back for 10 years, so we're going for it again with a certain way.
Yep.
And the other question I got for you is, what's the best? And this is from my guy. This is my guy Larry. He told me to hit you up or whatnot. He said, ask Mr. Wyche, what was the best team that you've ever covered in Atlanta, and like the team that you saw with talent wise or whatnot? What was the best Atlanta team you've covered?
Ooh, well, I mean, look, you had the NFC Championship that went up to Philadelphia and lost. With Mike Vick. You had Patrick Kearney, Crumpler. A lot of those guys. My favorite, the team I thought that was frightening, I want to say it was the 08 team when they got Michael the Burner Turner. That's when Matt Ryan was here. It was a year before they went out and got Tony Gonzalez, but the offensive line was really good with Todd McClure. Just really had like some dudes. They were really, Abe was on that team. Keith Brooking was on that team. They just really had their offensive line, Keenan Forney, guys like that. That was a team.
Doll.
Right.
Didn't we lose to Green Bay that year in the playoffs?
I know. Yeah, I think so. I think they actually came to the Georgia Dome.
Yeah.
And they beat us like redheaded stepchildren.
Yeah, because the Falcons beat them and they were barking. Ovi Muhaley was barking.
Yeah.
Came back in the playoffs and but that was a team.
Yeah.
Right. Beginning of Matt Ryan, but they had a nucleus. They had an identity. It was Mike Smith's first year. And he just really, they had Tyson Clabo at right tackle, and everyone loved him. He was nasty. It was an unathletic dude, but he was a nasty guy.
He'd fight you at the drop of a hat.
I love Harvey Dahl. That was my favorite lineman. I tell people that was the pepper on that O-line. He was the guy that did not mind. He was the Conrad Dobler of our offensive line.
No, Clabo. That was Clabo.
Yeah.
Harvey was nasty, but Clabo was
Clabo.
Clabo
so you would say Clabo is the Conrad Dobler. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, without
gotcha.
He was nasty. Just look at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Tyson Clabo was when you talk about biting kneecaps, he had already been there and done that.
Yes.
So I want to ask you something else too, because I know we got to get you out of here soon. But CJ Mosley just came up. This is a Jeff Ulbrich guy. He values linebackers, as you said, or whatnot. Do you think Atlanta pulls the trigger to have that conversation with him and let Ulbrich talk to him and try to get him to come to Atlanta? Because if you bring Mosley in, I think he could really make an immediate impact with Caden Ellis, and maybe they can help Trey Anderson get a little bit better and acclimated to that linebacker spot with veterans like that.
They've got to float that trial balloon. I mean, Brick knows how much CJ's got left. Brick knows a lot about that guy, but he's had a lot of good years. He knows what Brick wants. That's another thing. Having a veteran in your meeting room that knows what the coach wants is huge. Bobby Wagner, look what he did. And Quinn comes there. He played for Dan. He knew what Dan wants. Next thing you know, Frankie Luvu is one of the best linebackers in the NFL because he was taking cues, right? So that's, like you said, that's what a CJ Mosley could do for someone like a Caden Ellis or maybe a Troy Anderson, right? Okay, I get it. I know what he wants. So now I've got to figure that out with some coaching and some prep and things like that.
Okay. Rand, you said you wanted to ask him something about a particular topic that you burning to ask him about.
Well, go ahead. I'll let you take it.
Oh, no. This is your question. I'm not touching it. That's yours. Go ahead. I'll do it for you because you hesitate.
Go ahead.
He wants to know, will the Falcons ever go back to the red helmets and the red jerseys, the classic 80s uniform? That is something that we were trying to find out.
I know they're holding them up for special favors. That's the uniform. Go back to the Steve Bartkowski, Mike Ken unis.
Yes. Silver pants, white pants. Yes, love it.
The ones. William Andrews.
Yeah, that's my dude. Yes.
Those, I don't know if they will. I think they're holding on to the special uniforms because I don't know. I'm not in love with the ATL ones.
They got terrible uniforms right now, and I'm a diehard Atlanta fan. They're ugly.
I'm not a big fan.
They look like the Penn State of the NFL. They're just blah. They don't even have red anywhere on the uniform.
No, I can't even diss Penn State like that. Penn State's uniforms look better than the ones we have right now.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, but it's just plain. We don't even have red in our uniform unless it's outlined.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but those ain't it.
Yeah.
I mean, but a lot of us fans, when it was actually posted on social media, it was a lot of us that were angry about it. The only uniform that we actually liked out of the new uniforms that they have was the all-white one. That was it. Other than that, yeah, that was the clean. It's a clean look. It's basic, and I think that the all-white uniform can go. I think that should be an alternate uniform, and then you go back to the original, the red jerseys and red helmets, or heck, just go back to what we had when Jerry Glanville was here. Black jerseys, black helmets, silver pants. Either one of those. I prefer the red, but those two uniforms I prefer over what we have now. So
I'm a child of the 70s, so I love the red.
Yeah, when you haven't won a Super Bowl, you keep on buying quick picks instead of the same at the lottery.
You're right.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So lastly, like I said, I took your advice last time. I've networked with some folks or whatnot. I'm actually going to be hanging out. Shout out to Mr. Wyche Jones, who played for the Philadelphia 76ers in the 60s, helped win a championship here. He's definitely watching right now. He's going to be here tomorrow helping out with his organization. And I appreciate the tip that you gave me last time about you saying, hey, start reaching out to some of these guys. Maybe they can bring you either into a locker room or you go to functions. And I definitely appreciate that piece of advice because that's actually helped with networking and just being in a position to learn how to, like you said, conduct interviews and just see what people's mindsets are instead of just throwing questions out there for people. So I appreciate that tip, and I definitely am going to try to grow on that, sir.
Good. Well done by you.
Thank you. Well, we thank you for stopping by. We know you're a busy man. I love that suit you got in the background. You know, you're the cleanest man on TV, one of the coldest suit games out there. You got to give me your tailor when I make a little bit more money and I get out there one day. You got to give me your tailor's number.
I got
Hey, if you're in town next fall, you need to come to our get together. If you're in town,
it is because I hope to be in town. My mother still lives in Atlanta, so
when we throw our Falcons party, I'll make sure I'll send you the invitation. We did well this year, and shout out to Dave and Buster's. We're gonna be looking forward to working with you guys again. So we'll have Mr. Wyche in the building. We had a couple of legends in the building when we were there. Yep. So thank you for coming through tonight, Mr. Wyche.
Have me, guys. You guys have a good night.
Thank you,
sir. That was Steve Wyche, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wyche has come through and definitely dropped some knowledge out here for everybody. And everything that we've talked about for weeks and weeks, from K-Dub, Brant, Glenn, Coach Cam, Scoop, and all the guys in the BirdCage, he literally just echoed on everything that we talked about. Everything that we talked about, from defense to how things were. Now, there was a few nuggets that he threw in there that was a little different, but it was amazing to just be able to hear what he was saying about the mindset of the draft, what we need to do to fix the issues for the Falcons. But here's the question. Is Atlanta going to do that? That is the question. We can sit here and debate about it all day, but if the Falcons don't fix it, we're going to be sitting here talking about what we should be doing. As he said, he's tired of talking about it. He actually wants to see the team get better. Yep. So y'all take that for what it's made. What I'm going to do, I know you got a role, Coach Brant, but what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drop the link, and I want to hear how you guys felt about today's show. And you talk about some of the nuggets that everyone put out here tonight from Coach, myself, and Mr. Wyche or whatnot. So I dropped the link in the chat. You guys can come on. I'll be on for another 10, 15 minutes or whatnot. So you can tell us, how do you feel with the information that you have now? How do you feel as if it's going to transition, if we transition? So the link's in the chat. Come on in if you want to. But, Coach, I think I'll say this here, man. I really believe that we're going to be in a situation to where we've got to build, as he was saying, and D-line getting this edge rusher right is going to be crucial for us to go along with Leonard Floyd.
Yep. Oh, I'm with you. We've got a very select few picks that you and I have talked about several times, and I think there's about 3 guys that we need to have our eye on, and we need to take one of those 3, whichever one's available, and we'll see what happens. Let's hope we don't draft a punter or something like that in the first round, something crazy like we usually do.
No, I don't think we're going to do anything crazy like that, but where we saw it, pretty much Atlanta was all at Georgia. They had all their front office there looking at some of those guys. And when you look at it, they looked at Jalen Walker, and they also looked at Michael Williams. And some of the players that they also looked at when they were there, one of them was Chaz Chambliss, an unsung hero that a lot of people don't talk about, who set the edge, who can blitz. What's going on, Boom? Welcome to the cage, man.
What's going on with
the cage?
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, I saw Chambliss did 30 reps on 225 on the bench too.
He's strong as an ox.
That was nice. That was
He's
nice.
Scott D, man. That's a real deal right there.
Yeah, physical. Hey, and he's playing on the field shoulder. My bad, right? Playing on the field shoulder.
Yep. No, you good. As he got better, because remember, the last 2 years before, let's say 22, I'll say 22 and 23, he kind of got dogged. But this year, he was a dog bullying people. And as Mr. Wyche was saying earlier, when you look at weight room programs, you look at development and things like that. That's critical for a young man. As he said from the jump, you look at what happened with, he was saying, like with the HBCUs. He talked about a lot of guys are physically talented and their ceiling is very high. The only thing is they don't have the facilities. They don't have some of the necessities that some of these other schools have at this point. How do you feel? Because like I said, he mentioned Irv Mulligan, and I had to watch him kill my Southern Jaguars. That hurt me to my heart to watch that, but he's a talent. And he was saying that's a guy that you would look at. So if you let a Tyler Algier walk, I believe that's a guy, him or Jada Byers, you let one of those guys walk in the door, and you can get them from pennies off the dollar, and they can earn their money and earn their place. What do you think that would help if they were, and I don't want Tyler to go nowhere, but what do you think if Tyler leaves? Do you explore that option? Boom. You can answer, Rich. You can answer too. I can't see you, Rich.
I'm sick. I'm sick as a dog. I just want to say one thing to comment to what Steve said, and I was gonna drop down.
What you got?
He said something that I've been saying for at least the last 5 years. This is why I'm not really in a rush to get rid of Raheem, even though I dislike some of his decision making. I dislike some of the things he does, but I'm not all the way against him, because I've always felt like ever since 2017, we lost our identity. Like, you can't keep switching coaches and expect it's like how boxers have certain trainers they want to work with, and then when you switch their trainer and they start losing fights, and then you like, well, like, what was his name? Tyson Fury. Remember when he fired his trainer right after he lost that fight? Then when he went back to the trainer he was using initially, it's like we lost our identity after that Super Bowl, and that's why I felt like, regardless of how much I loved everybody, I think they should have swiped the whole team then, because we used to be run first. Now they don't know whether they want to run or pass. We used to be DT heavy. If you remember, we used to have some big DTs from Hagman to Poe to Adrian Claiborne. Now we want to be, what's that, 305 and under, them little light, because we want to be fast. It's like, bro, you got to find an identity. One thing I learned from playing football at Dunwoody, you got to have an identity when you play football. It's almost like a wrestling match. You got to out-psyche your other, the other team. But if you don't have an identity, that's why I was mad at Zach Robinson last year. Bro, do you want to run the ball or do you want to pass it? Which one do you want to do? Because if you don't have an identity, it's hard to keep players ingrained in what you're trying to do, because it's like you get off track. It's almost like, I put it like this. It's like the team got ADHD. 1 minute you want to do this. 1 minute you want to be this. 1 minute you want to be that. 1 minute you want to be this. What do you want to do? One thing I can respect about Arthur Smith said, we're going to run this ball till you stop me. We knew we was run heavy. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to pass? Do you want to run? Do you want to be DT heavy? Do you want to be edge heavy? Do you want to be linebacker heavy? Like, what?
So, Rich, I know you're going through the whole soliloquy of that, bro, but we gotta roll.
Yeah, no, that was my only thing.
I got you on that, because I know Boom was waiting and Graybeard popped up, because we rotating, folks. I'm not trying to just cut it short, because normally like I said, everything you've said has been on point. So that definitely speaks volumes of whatnot when we speak on some of the stuff, and then when you have an NFL insider speak on the same thing and he added a little bit more pepper to the stew, that right there tells you everything you need to know. So, hey man, I appreciate you for sliding in. Boom, Rich, please get better, bro.
Okay, I appreciate it.
We need you back in here. We need you back in here because we got to talk some schemes next time you come through, my guy.
All right, I'm about to drop down this B in the chat.
Yes, sir.
All right, Rich.
That's Rich. Great beard. Welcome to the party, man.
What's
happening?
going on? Hey, man, fantastic interview, man. D. Wyche, man, he's one of the realest, man. He always keeping a buck with us. So, yeah, man, I really did enjoy that interview with you and Coach Brent. I do agree that with everything that pretty much what everybody had in the interview, I think with we just got to see what we're gonna do, especially with Kirk Cousins, especially with Kyle Pitts. I think just seeing them just focusing on the defense let me know that they have been looking into the fan base and the people that been on ESPN, the people that been on Fox Sports, the people that been on NFL Network. They've been reading the writing on the wall, like the trenches, defense have been the Achilles heel for this team for almost 45 to 50 years.
Well, wait a minute.
No.
I'm gonna say you can't say that because of the grits blitz.
But yeah, I'm about to backtrack.
That's been 45 years.
I'm about to say the blick grit. I mean the blick grit
I'm
defense.
52. I'm 52, and that was in 77, 78. That's been a minute.
Yeah, I wasn't alive till 81. Go with that. I just think
Moby Dick was a minute when that happened.
Gee, right. But I just want the team to realize what we always want to emulate everything what other teams do, which is cool. But I just want us to create our own identity with King Richard can, because I did agree with him. Mm-hmm. We adapt. Everybody else fall off being better creating our own. But one thing that stands true to the test of time in the NFL and in football, period. The trenches win game. Defense win championship.
Because the one thing K-Dub was right about was, like how you said with the trenches or whatnot, we have a quarterback. He called it. He called that long time ago before he got there. He said, before we drafted, he said, I know JD5 is this, but Penix going to be our guy. He stood on that. Yeah, and I got to give it to him because me and Coach was JD5. He was cool with JD5 as well. But Penix was that dude. He said Penix is going to be our guy. And again, the way that we got him, and as Mr. Wyche was saying, you can't waste his window. You cannot waste his window of talent because right now we got him for the cheap right now.
Especially if he start putting up winning seasons and whatnot, the bag is coming. He gonna get that. He gonna get that money. You already look at what the Commander gonna have a big check to write when it's time for Jalen Daniels to get paid because he just took them to the NFC Championship game for the first time in a long time as a rookie.
Boom. Boom. Go ahead.
I want to touch on the question you asked about Irv Mulligan. First of all, Irv Mulligan, in my opinion, is the best top running back coming out of HBCUs. It's a couple other guys, but just the scenario, like I said, I did miss the interview. And when I saw Steve Wyche, the first thing I thought about was the day that the Atlanta Falcons signed Kirk Cousins in the interview they had on NFL Network. Man, Wyche pretty much let us know from his face, this is a mistake, right? But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to just touch on a few things. I know you said for the sake of time. And one thing I want to bring up, I'm going to be honest, I would love to have some of them dogs play for the Atlanta Falcons. But I think a lot of people, the Eagles situation, I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't think the Eagles necessarily targeted Georgia players. I think the Eagles are a defense that has already been established throughout the last couple of decades. They just found guys to replace what they already had. Guys that were similar to a Fletcher Cox, a Brandon Graham, those great front sevens. But I think, like we talking about with Penix, the Atlanta Falcons have the great equalizer and number 9 out of the University of Washington. And I think this guy is going to basically pull a lot of dead weight. But in terms of the defensive side of the ball, like Coach said, you got an opportunity to get a Jalen Walker. My personal favorite out of Georgia is Michael Williams. The guy reminds me a lot of Michael Parsons. You got an opportunity. Now, a lot of folks say Shamar Stewart, but I'm not going with a guy that only had 4.5 career sacks. That's just me, right? And they comparing this guy to Myles Garrett. Stop it.
Myles Garrett was a bully. He was a bully at Texas A&M.
He was an All-American.
Bully yeah, exactly.
No, we
and I
know he
think
was
they're talking
all American. It was the way that he played. Like
Yeah.
Myles Garrett, you knew from his freshman year pretty much until now. Think about it. He was a part of that team that upset Alabama when they were a top, when they had Julio on those boys. He was on that team.
Yeah, he was paired with Von Miller. Trust me, I know.
I will say that
right there
Johnny
was one of the
Football too,
nastiest parents.
Johnny Football had a lot to do with that too, now.
Oh, no, he balled that game.
Well, we know that, but here's the thing. But those two, Von Miller and Myles Garrett, on that defense,
crazy,
ridiculous.
Yeah,
crazy.
And think,
trust me, I remember
we have to see 2 times a year. Think about it. We have to see Mike Evans 2 times a year, maybe 3 if we go to the playoffs. And that dude eats every time. Every time.
Yeah.
So, and at this point, I agree with you on that. Mykel Williams, if we're going to draft at 15, go get Mykel.
Yeah.
I like Jalen Walker too. Don't get it twisted, but I've been saying this. I said, listen, if you don't get any one of these edge rushers, you better get you a Walter Nolan or a JJ Pegues.
Yeah. Or Big Grant from Michigan. Either one of those guys
or
me. But,
James Pierce.
Yeah, James Pierce Jr.
Yeah.
Fact of the matter is, and a lot of folks have been talking like they don't like the Leonard Floyd signing, but I'm going to be honest with you. Leonard Floyd had 8.5 sacks last season. The season prior at 9.5 sacks. He had 3 10.5 sacks in a row. And going back to 2020, 9 sacks. Leonard Floyd still getting it done. And he's been consistently and efficient. So I think for the Falcons, and you touched on C.J. Mosley. First of all, C.J. Mosley is one of the best seasoned veterans in the National Football League. A guy who's always been physical, a guy who's been dominant, going all the way back to Alabama, man. So I think that C.J. Mosley is probably the missing centerpiece. And I think with adding Devine, a guy who's a great off-ball linebacker, a guy that can go sideline to sideline. With a Troy Anderson, we're still looking for development. And with Caden Ellis, and like I've been saying before, a lot of folks don't agree. But I think if you even want to beef up that linebacker room more, in my opinion, I've been on this all offseason so far. We got to go and get a Jahad Campbell. The reason why, not even so much for the inside backer position. You can line this guy up in the 3-4 as an edge rusher. You can line this guy up anywhere you need, and talking about bringing in a CJ.
Jahad going to be gone. I don't know what you talking about. If we draft the edge, Jahad ain't going to be there. And neither is James Pierce.
He should have been a first rounder, in my opinion, to begin with. And they were saying he's going to be second round. But the fact of the matter is, man, I think with the Leonard Floyd sign, bringing back a Judon with Braylon Trice returning, I'm curious to see. Like I said, I think you go, and this may sound backwards, but in my opinion, right now, I like Dorless, I like Ruperoro, but we have to go D tackle in the first round. Like I said, a Walter Nolan, a Grant. There, and with a defensive heavy draft. There's no reason for this. And me personally, we got 4 picks. I say we go get all linemen, or you try to get your offensive tackle, which we're going to need a guy for his blind side. Because, we got Caleb Muscari over there. Not McGarry, Muscari, right? And
did you see how Steve gushed when I talked about Carson Vincent? Did you see that? That's all I'm going to say. He started smiling. And another guy is Brant, your guy.
Yeah.
If we can't get him, guess what? Go get Cade Mays.
Yeah,
Cooper.
Get Cade Mays at that center spot.
Cooper
Mays. Cade is his big brother. I'm sorry. Go get Cooper Mays.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We don't have a center. Or if you go get Andrews, because Andrews just was cut from the Patriots at that center spot. So again, if you don't get him, go get Mays. Young player that can grow up with Michael Penix.
And I like the Andrews move too. If they were to make him, man, he's still a veteran guy that's been around for a while, man. Well, not super long, but a guy that I believe can come in and fill that void. But the fact of the matter is, I'm kind of excited for what I have seen. It's not like we made the best moves. I do like bringing Mike Ford back, a physical DB. Come down to make tackles. You can utilize them inside, out, nickel, dime, whatever the case may be. Not too sold on Mike Hughes. Not a big fan of Mike Hughes. Never really have been. But I do like them, signing Mike Hughes. But like Coach said, man, Ulbrich is going to bring that physical presence. The guy played linebacker, was a great coach here in Atlanta, great up there with the Jets. A guy that's going to bring that mentality, like we are the anchors of the defense. We're the quarterbacks of the defense. And truth be told, the team, any team, you can talk about the front four. We know the defensive line is important to get to the pass rusher. But if you don't have linebackers, right? You don't have backers that can blow up gaps, guys that can read and react, guys that can be extensions of the D-line and the nucleus for the secondary, then where do we go? And having Ulbrich back in here and talking about a C.J. Mosley, you talking about bringing physicality back to the Atlanta Falcons, right? So that's my whole take on that, man. I just want to see this team become more physical. I want to see this team become more versatile. I want to see the Atlanta Falcons open up and like you said, consider the fans and show the city of Atlanta that we have a football team we can root for. And I'll say this, we're 14 days away from the Atlanta Braves. I'll have to throw that in there.
We cool with that. K-Dub, what's good?
I just had a question for the panel real quick. By us drafting the D tackle that we got with moving up to get Roro. Yeah,
we hear you.
K-Dub, what it is, family?
What's happening?
You froze.
Okay.
You froze.
No, everybody was going in. I was trying to get in here. Now I just want to say,
no, go ahead.
Am I still froze?
No, you good.
Are you good now?
Am I still froze?
Yeah, you're froze. So guess what? You're gonna just have to talk, man. Just put your camera on your pick.
Keep going in and out.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to say what's up there, man. Great job on it. Steve White doing his thing. But I'm getting some feedback, so you know what I'm saying. But I'm gonna continue to keep talking. It's maybe on my end, but I just want to say great job on what y'all did, man. He had some great points about the Falcons. I just feel like Boom is right about some things he was just saying, and his story. You've been hitting on them things about the HBCU, so I just can say, look, man, I like what the Falcons organization is doing. You know what I'm saying? They're moving in a positive direction. I seen the whole front office, the whole team, the whole squad down there, Georgia. So that's the same thing they did for Michael Penix. I believe we'll be taking a couple of dogs this year. They're going to make a statement. I'm going to go ahead and say it early. I believe we take a couple of dogs this year. And they're just going ahead.
How many do you think we
make
take?
Up for lost time. I know they
2 dogs.
I say we take about 3.
Hey, K-Dub got to get rid of that.
I say we take Jalen Walker in the first round. I say we take Jalen Walker in the first round, and the mid round we go take Garrett Wilson, and then in the late 7th round when the 1st round pick, he's still on the board. I say we take Dan the Man Jackson. That's what I think we take as Dallas coming out. If we go with it.
Bro, I think I'm gonna be real. I think Dan is gonna be gone probably in the 3rd round. After that 40 he put up, I think he's gonna be gone. He ran a 4.40 with the type of film that he put up. I love to get Dan in the back, but I don't think he's. Pause. I'd love to get Dan in the back of the secondary. Let me make sure I say that right. That pause didn't reverse that. I'd love to get him in the secondary and whatnot because we know that the guy is a ball player, but I'm gonna tell you who I think we get if we don't get Dan Jackson.
Malachi Starks.
Either that, if they'll find some way to finagle that, or here's another. Malachi's gonna be gone in the 1st round.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna give you this here. Chaz Chambliss. We talked about this. Or if we don't go Chambliss, Miles Monday. Everybody keep forgetting about Monday.
I forgot about Miles Monday.
My sentiments exactly.
Yeah, I like Smile Monday also.
That could
work. I just feel like that's what I say. If Dan Jackson drops into the 7th, we jump on him. If
that could, yeah, but I see him going by 3rd round, mid-3rd round. He gone.
I think the Falcons going to
I want to ask Coach. No, I was going before you say he's still a few. I wanted to ask Coach Brandt something because this was something that we kind of talked about off the record. Now we talked about in the secondary or whatnot, some of the guys there. Who would you take at this point when you look at, because we've mentioned a few safeties or whatnot, they just signed Mike Hughes. What corners would you try to bring in for depth purposes that you know they're not going to be top round draft picks, but some guys that you've seen that you would like to add for the rotation that could be groomed by some of these guys that are starters right now?
You talking about corners or safeties?
Both. We can say both, either or.
Because I know somebody that I wish we'd bring back for free agency.
Who would that be?
Isaiah Oliver, because he was starting to flourish under them.
As safety.
Yep.
Boom mentioned him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Him and
like you.
Ulbrich and Raheem have a good history. When they moved him from corner and put him at safety and got him and his length, he was playing good, and then we got rid of him. So I wouldn't mind seeing him if we could get him back in the mix, because Richie Grant's gone, and he could I think he'd be a big help for us right now. He knows the scheme, and he's got a little experience about him. I want to go back, and y'all know I'm a Tennessee boy, but Saban, you can say one thing about Saban. Yeah. He said, "Don't bring me those little guys." He goes, when in the fourth quarter they get tired, he goes, "Big guys are in the fourth quarter. You know what they still are? Big son of a."
Yeah.
And here's
I
the
want
thing
big guys out there on the corners and stuff. I don't want no more. I'm a short guy, but I don't want no more 5'9" DBs.
Not just you. K-Dub said it, I said it, Scoop said it, and Coach Cam. At this point, you got to start drafting corners that have height on them.
Yes.
You have to draft them, because, again, I love the fact that Steve Wyche threw my boy Kendall Bowler's name out there. He said he was a shutdown guy.
Yep.
Literally a shutdown corner. So boom. Now, you were saying that the Falcons would be stealing picks, or what it possibly might steal picks or go back. It's going to be the last thing, and we're going to wrap this thing up, fellas. What you got when you talk? What do you have when you talk about the Falcons stealing picks or or trading back to get more picks?
Well, on a few of the mock drafts that I've been paying attention to, because I'm working on doing a mock draft show myself, there have been several, I'm going to say this, guys like Nick Sturgeon, all those guys are dropping. But there was a move that I want to say, who was it? Ian Rapp on one of his drafts. The Falcons possibly trading a spot maybe in the second round, going back in the second round to get, I think, a fifth rounder, a seventh rounder, because they're going to be, like you've been talking about, there's going to be a lot of great DBs. And I think about Big Porter. We talking about big corners. I think about, man, the kid from Eastern Carolina and Darian Porter from Iowa State. That guy runs the 4.39. And you talking about, I mean, I'm thinking about the Brandon Browners of the NFL, 6'4" corner. And I think that this guy, coming into the football league with the right scouting coordinator, strength and conditioning coaches, I think that kid is going to be a steal. And if I'm seeing a kid that tall at the cornerback position, I'm taking him. If he's available on my draft board, and let's say I do trade back and I end up getting 3 extra picks, because they're saying right now he's probably going to be a 4th or 5th round guy. I think that, like you talked about, a lot of these guys who aren't big names right now are going to be key for the Falcons. And I think that they may get a couple steals, like you said, a Dan Lanning. Malachi Starks is going to be gone. But like this Porter kid, the kid from Eastern Carolina, because you probably won't get Will Johnson. Will Johnson's going to be gone. But I like big physical corners as well. And you get a 6'3" guy with our division, with all this speed and height we go up against, and with the schedule we have next year, I think I just really believe that the Atlanta Falcons may be in a better position this offseason. Throw the cap space out. We just focusing on what they can do. You make trades in the draft, the draft capital and all those type things. And like I talked about also, the Falcons are going to build their team when it comes to later in the summer. When these guys are getting cut, there are going to be a lot of guys that they wanted that they couldn't take because of the situation.
No more itty-bitty corners.
Exactly. Yeah, no more itty-bitty corners. That's why I said the whole Mike Hughes situation, I'm not super excited. I like Mike, but I'm not a fan of Mike. I do like Mike Ford. I think that's probably going to be a special teams move, to be honest. I think if he comes in, because 3 or 4 corners are going down. But the fact of the matter is, we need big corners. There are several 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" corners. I think the kid Porter from Iowa State is the biggest corner in the draft. So, yeah. I appreciate that.
Big boy. Listen.
Appreciate that. But like I
I
said,
know you trying to get I know you trying to get it out there. So it's a lot of people in this chat. So listen, y'all like what this man is bringing to the table. I'm gonna tell you like this here. Check out Boom. I gave you the link to that. Y'all check out A1 and Smitty,
Go follow
Berto, and
Boom,
those
man.
guys. Definitely, because they, like I said, those are my content cousins or whatnot. We always working together on stuff. Check out the eye test with John the Cricket Deacon, my guy, and those guys over there. Well, shout out to Ron and those guys in the Ignorant Thinkers podcast, my Philly family or whatnot. Those guys, they Eagles fans, but it's a mixture of everything. It's two of us birds up in there. So again, we got to represent for the dirty birds. You feel what I'm saying? So Boom. I pretty much posted the link to your channel so you can chill out. You ain't got to worry about saying that. We definitely look forward to having you guys again. Rich, once you get your channel up and going, we'll put that out there. Shout out to King Richie as well. Definitely comes in here and drops knowledge. Coach Brant, thank you for coming through tonight. I know you got an early morning, but hey, man, we see the dedication. We see the dedication there, and we appreciate that. And also,
appreciate the
other magnificent BirdCage members, K-Dub, Graybeard, thank y'all for coming in here tonight and giving a little bit of knowledge on the show and giving up some time, because you guys could be taking the night off pretty much, but you guys decided to come in here. Prayers out to Coach Cam and those folks out there in Arizona. They have a power outage right now, so praying that they get that power back on pretty soon. Our guy Sean, better known as Turbo, shout out to him. Melton, watching on the show, and also our guy Scoop, always putting out information on X, also on the Facebook page. This is why we call him Scoop. He's always putting the news out. So thank you guys for all of y'all hard work, and definitely not least the fans that tuned in tonight. We appreciate you guys for coming through, showing love to not only the BirdCage but Mr. Steve Wyche, who's a respected Atlanta journalist and definitely comes on and he shows love and gives us knowledge or whatnot of not just the organization but the NFL as a whole. So we appreciate that, Mr. Wyche, and we appreciate NFL Network for loaning him out to us for the night. We definitely appreciate you guys letting him come in here and tap in with us. So as we say here, you either get right or you get left. And we got an interview that's going to be coming up on the 27th of this month. Mr. Maurice Wells of the former Ohio State Buckeyes running back, appeared in 2 national championships. My partner, my old high school teammate, my boy, my brother at arms or whatnot, when we put on that gold helmet back in the day. Unfortunately, I will not say what our high school mascot was because it's relevant to one of my most hated rivals. So the hell with the Saints. So anywho,
we need to know about that.
I don't even wear my high school Letterman jacket like that now. I'm telling you that now. I stopped doing that. As soon as I graduated, that thing went in the closet. I made sure it was no crescent symbol on there. But what hurt me the worst is that damn thing is also blue and gold. And that's another rival for me. So again, I had a double whammy in high school. Yeah, see, painful memories, painful as knee injuries. But hey, thank y'all for coming through, man. We'll catch y'all next week on the BirdCage LLC, and we're gonna have some more mock drafts and a few other things, baby. You either get right or you get left. It's the BirdCage, baby. Let's go.